head, because it's August, it's already autumn, but the world is not cooperating. It's hot as sin outside. But hello! I feel a little better. I had to film this intro like 6 times because my camera kept overheating, so I just switched cameras, got coffee. Yes, I'm drinking coffee again. Yes, it still hurts my stomach. It's fine. We're fine. It tastes delicious and it keeps me awake. We're doing what we gotta do. Hi, my name is Lindy Jung. I am a soon-to-be traditionally published science fiction and fantasy author. My debut novel, MOTHSBLOOD, comes out fall 2026 from Bloomsbury in the US and Del Rey in the UK. It is a dark academia adult fantasy, and we're so back, kind of. I feel like it's been so long since I picked up the camera. I have the equivalent of probably 4 videos sitting on my hard drive right now that just have not been edited in any capacity. Yeah, it's been a minute. So because it's been a minute, I guess I'll give you guys sort of a rundown on some big life events that have happened recently. I graduated at the end of July. I walked with my department. We had like our own little department ceremony. It was really sweet. As of yesterday, I've also 99.9% completed my thesis or capstone project, which is the very last thing I have to do to get my degree. I say 99.9% because like I want to maybe give it another half hour or hour to just sweep through. And I know there were a couple of like sections that I left blank because it was just tedious copy paste kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm done with grad school. The last 14 months of my life over. I mean, if you've been watching this channel, you probably know how stressed out I've been, but it's also kind of like a weird, wistful feeling almost to be done, like to have moved on from this chapter of my life, especially because the 80 people that I've been around these past 14 months, we're all going our separate ways, hopefully going to see each other again, but never in the same context. We're never going to be in classes together until like 9 p.m. at night. We're never going to commiserate about student teaching or homework. It's just kind of an odd feeling. Second important thing that has kind of happened this summer is that you saw this in the Chicago vlog that I uploaded, hopefully before this one. Who knows what'll happen? But I have also officially finished what seems like it will be the last revision of MOTHSBLOOD. So the book is pending some copy edits, and you know, maybe my editors on this pass will catch something that we missed. This book is done. It is in its final form. I did my last revision in 4 days, record time, read it from top to bottom, and just like tweaked things as I went along. I was reading it so quickly because I was invested in the story. I was actually getting like swept up in the story that I already know from front to back and back to front and know by heart and also came up with, which I think is a little ridiculous. But I also am so proud of this book, and to see all of our work culminated in this product, like in this final form of a book that truly does feel like a book that I would grab off a bookshelf and will be a book that eventually, hopefully, some people are going to grab off a bookshelf. It was very, very surreal. I honestly can say that even though this is like 3rd finished novel, I actually do feel very happy and proud of my work. Just comparing what this book looked like when I queried it, and even when we went on submission versus now, like it is still very much the same book at its core, but everything weak has been strengthened, everything strong has been pushed to the forefront. It's like its final ultimate form, if that makes sense. And it really did feel that way as I was reading through it. So yeah, I do kind of feel like, pending some tiny things, this is going to be the very last time that I got to work on this book. And I was like thinking about different metaphors to describe this feeling. I was thinking like maybe it's a bit like a long-term relationship, but as cliche as it really is kind of like sending a child off to college. I mean, I've never been a parent. It's obviously a much lesser thing, but I've worked on this book, I've shaped it, I've helped it kind of become the best that I can possibly make it. And now we're gonna send it off into the world. Like literally in a couple weeks, I have a call scheduled with my editors on both sides of the pond to talk about blurbs, which is when you send a manuscript off, or an arc of a manuscript, which is an advanced reader copy. It's a pre-published version of the book. You send it out to established authors in order to get them to read it and hopefully say a couple nice things about it that you can slap on the cover or use in your marketing. I've seen the list of potential people we're going to send this out to for a blurb. It is surreal. It is some of like my absolute favorite frickin' writers on the planet, people I am in awe of, and to think that there's even a 1% chance that they're going to read my words is insane. It's insane. It is so exciting. It's terrifying. It's crazy. But yeah, this is again like a transitional stage. Obviously, editorial has been very different from anything I've done before just because we're now functioning at this more professional level. But I've edited a book before. I know what it looks like more or less. I had expectations for this process going in and those expectations were met. But I do not know what to expect from the whole like publishing, marketing, all that stuff leading up to fall 2026 when this book comes out. I don't know what it's going to look like. And that's again exhilarating, but it's also very anxiety inducing. But that's not the point of today's video. We'll talk about that more as that stuff comes up. Of course, I will update you guys on the publishing process because I find it endlessly fascinating. So I'm going to talk about it, you know? But really the point of that anecdote was to let you know that this has been a really big summer for me. Very transitional, very strange in a lot of ways. Like some weird stuff has kind of happened as well. And I guess I'm kind of feeling a little bit lost and a lot like I am not ready to dive into my next book relationship again. I've known for a while, and you guys probably know as well if you've been watching this channel, that the next book that I'm going to write and try to sell is Project Crypts, which is a gothic adult fantasy, touch of romance. It's basically about a noble house of necromancers and the death priestess who really wants to like mess him up. I've been having so much fun with this book, but I feel like I've been so focused on the future of this book, right? In between turning in my second to last edit for mods and waiting for my last edit letter to come back. So that span of time, I think it was like May, June, something like that. I was working so hard on Crypts. I dove in both feet. I had this goal in mind, which was to like finish and polish up the first 3 chapters and write a full synopsis for books 1 and 2. Synopsises? Can someone tell me what the plural of synopsis is in the comments, please? Thank you. I appreciate you. But I was like headfirst diving into Crypts. I was really not giving myself a break, I think, because I've had this sort of deadline for Crypts in mind for a while now. I really want to get that first draft finished by fall-ish, like maybe my birthday. And that deadline is creeping up. And yeah, I am a little nervous about it. But I do think I really just need to take a step back and take a breather because I have definitely felt myself getting caught up in kind of this like rat race of publishing and like, I don't know. I will say that I got my first couple advance checks. I did not have like a big 6-figure splashy deal, but it's still like more money than I've ever seen in my life. I might be low-key addicted to being compensated for my work now. I don't know. So it has been in the back of my mind that I need to write Crypts. I need to finish it. It needs to be good. It needs to be marketable. I need to sell it. But I accomplished my goal, right? I accomplished my short-term goal of getting those first 3 chapters polished and sent to my agent. She actually got back to me last Friday and said she had no notes, which is absolutely an insane thing to hear, but I did buff those to a high shine. But still, like it's wonderful to hear that she is on board with this project. We are going to try to sell this thing, and I'm really excited for it. But as excited as I am for Crypts, and as much as I love this project, which I do because it has been so much fun for me in so many ways, namely just the characters are a blast. I am so excited for people to meet them. As excited as I am for this project, again, I just sent my child off to college, metaphorical child, and I am not actually a mother, so I don't really know, but I just sent MOTHSBLOOD off into the world. She's going to Harvard. Just kidding. She's going to ASU. Sorry, that was like very much my mom just jumped out of me just then. That was a little scary. I am not emotionally ready, I think, to fully dive into Crypts yet, and if I do so just to kind of chase this bottom line, I don't think I'll be happy with myself. Also because I know once I fully commit to Crypts, it is going to be my life for the next couple years at the very least, especially because it's a duology. That kind of gives me the ick, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm going to explore some other regions of my writing, of my creativity. I'm going to let that creative energy back into my writing life just a little bit, just for the next 3 days. I have several short stories and various like half-formed short stories and book projects and ideas just rattling around in my brain. I've been joking to myself that this is going to be the video where I just let like the ADHD loose, but really the aim, more so than to figure out, you know, what's marketable or what's going to sell. The aim is to just explore and see where the wind takes me and see where my creative winds take me and just have fun with writing again. I think it's been a huge theme of my life lately to just kind of like enjoy things. I've been spending a lot of time crocheting and knitting and just like, I don't know, playing video games with my friends rather than like focusing on work. I had a little bit less of a workload this summer, so I was just able to let myself breathe, and I really enjoyed it. And especially after making my recent video about generative AI, which thanks for the comment section of that, by the way, it's been such a fun time. In making that video, it really clicked for me how much I want writing to remain something that is enjoyable, no matter how serious of a career path it becomes. I just don't want to like lose the enjoyment and the joy and the satisfaction and creativity and exploration and zaniness and wackiness of writing, even though I'm making money off of it now. So I know that's a little bit of like a hippy-dippy naive thing to say. I'm a hippy-dippy kind of naive person, but writing's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. If I didn't enjoy it, frankly, I'm not the kind of person who would stick with it. That's basically what's gonna happen. So next 3 days, just exploring. I was going to go to a cafe this morning. It is now 11:40 and I think it's closed. So we are not going to do that. I'm instead probably going to zip around, maybe go out for a light lunch at this other cafe that I really like. And this morning, or I guess we're going into the afternoon now, I'm mostly going to be looking through my mess of a Google Drive, looking at all my short stories, all of my like half-started book ideas, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit with you guys, like talk about why I didn't pursue them or what I could do with them now, maybe, and what they're about. So that's going to be today. Tomorrow we are going into Madison, so we're going to have a fun day zipping around there. That's really going to be where I'm just writing the most, I hope. I have this amazing, it's called the Sausier. It's in Verona. It is a knitting cafe, so they serve drinks. It's like, I guess, a craft cafe because you can really do anything, and they also have a beautiful yarn store attached. I discovered it last week on one of my little adventures. I've just been going on little adventures lately, and it has changed my life. Like, I am fully obsessed. It's a little bit of a drive, it's a little bit of an excursion, but I think it'd be a great place to get some work done and also to like knit and stuff, because I taught myself to knit on Tuesday when I went to the Sausier and got knitting needles and like yarn to make a patchwork cardigan, and I love it. I think right now I needed a little bit of a break from crochet, and it's exactly what I needed, just like in terms of my hand. For some reason, knitting doesn't aggravate my carpal tunnel as much as crochet does. So we'll go there, we'll do all sorts of fun stuff tomorrow, and then Wednesday we'll do some cafe hopping here in town and have a good time. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what's going to happen in this vlog. It's going to be very off the cuff. We're gonna have a good time though, so let's go ahead and get started. Bye. Hi. Okay, happy news, just finished my thesis. I'm happy with it, or as happy as I can be. Honestly, this has been a nightmare for me. I feel that like pressure lift off my chest that I didn't feel yesterday, where I'm like, okay, I'm done, it's out of my hands, no longer my problem. Now we finally get to move on to the good stuff at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which of course I've already started going through and like kind of looking not just at my Google Drive, which I was going all the way back to 2022. Some of the ideas in there I don't even remember, but I've written fair amounts of them. But I also have been looking at my notes app, which is where I jot down all of my like half-baked ideas or random paragraphs that come to me. My notes app is the stuff of nightmares. You know, when I eventually die, if anyone cares enough to sort through it, they will just lose their minds and go insane. There is some pretty interesting stuff in both of those areas, and some of it is calling to me, so I've written down some of the stuff that's the most interesting. I haven't sorted through everything yet, but I will keep going and then kind of give you guys a rundown. Now that I'm done with the boring stuff, I think I'm going to get some lunch just to like put something in my stomach, because I haven't done that. Maybe take a tiny break, just a tiny bit of a break, to start the loose, airy green cardigan that I want to make. That's basically what's going to go down, and I will catch up with you guys in a little bit. Bye. Hello. Okay, so it is 3:35. I am going to the gym in like 25 minutes, so I want to do this relatively quickly. But I made a little list of the findings of my notes app and also my Google Drive. I wanted to go over some of the projects that have jumped out at me so far and some that I potentially want to explore and visit over the next couple days. So first up, we have Project Green, which is most likely going to be the book that I write fully and try to sell after I finish Crips, if all that goes well, of course. Project Green, I think, is best described as like a modern fairy tale Midwestern Gothic. It started life as a literary fabulous novel, but it kind of has branched out and taken a couple different turns. I wrote the first couple chapters actually, with the intention of like submitting to a residency type program, and I ultimately didn't get in, but I ended up really falling in love with the concept, developing it further. It's got a really cool like intergenerational story, and also it's all tied up in this like small town Midwestern kind of supernatural mystery that I find really fun. There's a romance element as well. Like, it's just kind of everything that I like. With Project Green, a lot of the elements are so clear in my head, but the voice has been very difficult to capture. But I was reading Catherine M. Valente's Deathless, and I realized that that sort of fairy tale storytelling tone, that voice, is pretty close to like what I would want for this particular project, just because I think that adds a really cool element of like surrealism and also sense that you can't fully trust what's being told to you. There's a little bit of like an unreliable narrator situation going on. I don't think it's an exact one-to-one. They're very different stories, but that sort of storied feeling, I guess, is the best way to put it, is sort of what I want for the voice. After that, I was looking at Project Kings, which is actually a fully finished short story. It is a horror piece that takes place in an oceanside community. Literally, I think I finished this in like 2024 probably, and I'd been conceptualizing it since 2023. It's about 4,000 words, so for one thing, I think I could kind of take it down a little bit in terms of its length. For another thing, I'm not really happy with the climax, so this is one that I could definitely just like maybe in an afternoon tear apart a little bit and put back together and see what happens. But I will say I'm not feeling super drawn to it, mostly because it's finished, so all that's left to do is that like tedious work of reworking what's already there to make it better. Snowdrops, or Project Snow, is a high fantasy set in the world of Project Tiger, which is something I'll talk about in a bit. Also a complete story. I wrote it from beginning to end for an anthology that I ended up withdrawing from. I've had it beta read a couple times, but after I got like some feedback back on just the story's flow and all that stuff, I realized that it was originally like a straight historical setting, and I think it would be better in a fantasy setting with a little bit more of that like mythology woven in, because the mythical elements kind of come out of nowhere with the straight historical setting. I want to rework it so that it takes place in the world of Project Tiger, which is more mythic and obviously more fake, but the world of Project Tiger is not fully fleshed out yet. It would be fun to revisit. I think it would be a great exercise just in terms of getting a feel for Project Tiger's world as well, because that is a full-length novel and this would just be a short story, but it's a lot of work. And again, I'm not really feeling like the revision side of things. I want to draft, I want to come up with stuff, I want to like have that full creative flow kind of thing going on. So that's sort of back burner, but I'm not really feeling it right now. Okay, and then Project Tiger. This is one that has kind of been exciting me. This would be a high fantasy novel, adult, and it would actually be a full rework of my young adult fantasy that I went on submission with my second agent, probably in 2022, 2023, shortly after the pandemic, because Ari's Guide, my young adult contemporary fantasy, died a little bit after the pandemic. So this is set in a world based off of Korean mythology. I really want to like develop it into a distinct secondary world where the elements of Korean culture and Korean mythology and history are very influential, but it's still a standalone world and not just like historical Korea light, if that makes sense. Originally, it was very much historical Korea light with a very uninformed, I mean, I did a lot of research, but it wasn't nearly as meticulous as it could have been. But I really, really want to like fully build my own world and make sure that it stands apart and is unique. This has really great characters. I would basically preserve the characters, just age them up and kind of change their character arcs a little bit. There's one character in particular who is a prince who I love so much. He is so problematic, and we love that. I also have pirate, a nun, all sorts of stuff. It was a ton of fun. Very like adventure-y. For this one, the main plot of the original book would probably stay pretty much the same, but I want to add another POV that kind of explores this like political intrigue plot as well. That might be a fun one to like sit down and just brainstorm how I would approach this. And then we have Project Death, which is a historical fantasy. I think it would probably have to be a novel. It's a bit like Circe, where it spans decades basically and centuries and all that stuff, like spans a long period of time. This has one of my favorite titles of all time. Like, I came up with the title first, It's not Project Death, it's something else. And it actually has a loose connection to Project Moths. So I just said Project Moths. It has a loose connection to Moth's Blood. Not enough to really be like a sequel or a prequel or anything, but it is the same world. And then we have Project Lucky Strike, which is demon hunters in Los Angeles. It is a very fun, very like soapy urban fantasy. I think this is very much my answer to like CW shows of the early 2000s, like The Vampire Diaries, except for kind of an older audience. So not set in high school or anything, but it's got cults, it's got demonic possession and like body horror kind of stuff. If you've heard of The Dead Take the A Trend by Cassandra Kah, that's sort of the vibe I'm going for, just a very like urban fantasy paranormal, but also very like weird and surreal. This one also has characters that I really love. They've actually been inhabiting my head for, oh my gosh, like a really long time. Like the characters of Lucky Strike are older than like Moth's Blood. That's how long this has been rattling around in my brain, but I've just known for a while that until recently, I think I didn't have the chops to pull this off in the way that I would want to. Like if I'd written this any earlier, it probably would have turned into a pretty by-the-book paranormal urban fantasy kind of story. But now that I feel more comfortable with like the more literary side of things and playing with surrealism and theme and unreliable narrators, I think this could be a ton of fun. And it's very voicey as well. Very, very different from anything I've ever written, but we love that. Okay, Project Fox is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies meets The Mummy from the 90s. A very classic kind of adventure story. I haven't determined the setting for this. I think it would have to be like historical with a bit of a fantasy edge to it, but I've also played around with like a secondary world setting where people are powered by these like giant bones, like magic is drawn from like fossil fuels. Essentially, magic is drawn from the bones and fossils of these like ancient creatures that inhabited the world before humans, blah, 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 mining, and it's a whole thing. But I don't think I'm going to do that, which is why I spilled all that right there. Another one where the characters are super distinct to me. The themes are also very distinct for this one, and it would be like a very fun adventure, sort of treasure hunting, travel around the world, and forced proximity because you're working with like the person that you kind of hate, but your goals are aligned and your skills complement each other really nicely. So you got to work together. Ton of fun, but it needs a little bit more thought, a little bit more time in the oven. Okay, Project Papaya is a short horror based off of my time living in Thailand. That's literally all I've got for you. I think this is one where it's just a miasma of vibes in my head and I would have to sit down and actually start like typing to get anywhere. There's a couple of like moments from my time in Thailand that were very scary in like a supernatural ghosty way that I want to draw upon. So this would be like a fun crank out a short story in an afternoon kind of project. And then after that, Project Feed, short story about becoming your mother. Also a horror story. But yeah, these last two are a lot less developed, but I did find them in my notes app and I thought they'd be kind of fun. Other stuff that is rattling around in here. I have a high fantasy idea that's been rattling around in my head for a while since it looks like 2023 or 2022. As I was looking through this, I realized that like almost all of my notes are from 2023 and there's hundreds of concepts in here. A good probably third of them are just from the year 2023, specifically like the first couple months of 2023. What was I doing? This is how I like check on my life now. If I don't remember what I was doing during a certain year, I look at my YouTube channel to see. I think I just come back from Costa Rica. That makes sense. I came back from Costa Rica. I was working my field job and I was being a little crazy because I was in the car all the time. So I have one that's like based off of Vikings. I love Vikings and it's about like sisters. And oh yeah, there's also Project Parasite, which is a short horror story that's almost done. I think I'll try to finish that this week because I think it's a fun concept and I think it could probably sell to a magazine. Ooh, this one's like a Hades and Persephone retelling in a secondary world fantasy setting. I do think Hades and Persephone has been done to death. I came up with a really cool magic system for this. This one is about a hotel by the sea and a very unlucky non-binary friend who falls in love with an ocean god. A cyberpunk story that I'm never going to touch because I just realized that that's not really my jam in terms of writing. I love to consume cyberpunk stories. I hate thinking about technology in this way. It makes me feel like the world is going to end, so I don't do it. Jazz punk, so like a 20s style cyberpunk, and this is like a little bit of an Alice in Wonderland retelling. That's kind of fun. What? That's from May of 2022. Let's go back even further. Let's see. Ooh, Secret Royal Family of Korea alt history. That's from 2021. Oh, this is just like a snippet of something. Another snippet. More Alice in Wonderland. That's 2020. This is a middle grade novel that I don't think I'll write anytime soon, but I really enjoyed. There's like this this one character concept that I really liked that I've been trying to find a way to utilize elsewhere, but it really only suits middle grade, unfortunately. Ooh, this one is like basically a town in a secondary world, sort of medieval-esque, and there's a big veil of shadow, and if they cross it, terrible things happen and like monsters come out of the veil periodically. It's very weird. And it's a horror fantasy that I thought was really fun. Oh, Gold Rush era California immigrant story, food truck story that I've talked about. It's called Project Sunshine. Oh, Project Memory. That's like I can't tell if it's young adult or adult. It also has like a lot of similarities to Project Lucky Strike, which I would prioritize because it's just like been with me longer, but it's another like urban setting. It's a little bit more grounded and serious, and I think more of a thriller than Lucky Strike would be, which helps differentiate it, but the worlds are so similar that like I can't justify it basically, unless they get like they could take place in the same world. That's fine. Ooh, this one is really fun. I don't want to get too into it, but it's court intrigue mixed with ghost stories and horror. See, here's another like urban fantasy concept where there's one thing about the world, one core detail about it that makes it so interesting and makes me really want to explore it, but everything else about the world is too similar to Lucky Strike. I'll stop now, but basically lots of different things to work on over the next couple days. I have to go to the gym, unfortunately. I skipped a full week and I feel bad about it, but now we're just gonna go back and we're gonna go really hard. I'm excited for this. I don't know if I'm going to start writing tonight, honestly, but tomorrow is going to be a full day of writing, exploring cafes, good times. There have been a couple of cafes that I found on my wanderings on Tuesdays and Thursdays that I'm really excited to show you guys. So I think that's it for today, and I'll update y'all tomorrow. Bye. It is Tuesday morning. I just got ready, did my makeup. Also, it's unbelievable how long my hair has gotten. I've been editing my San Francisco vlog where I actually got my hair cut, and the difference between then and now, and it's only been like 2 months, actually wild. So to get back on track, we are going down to Madison. I actually don't need to go down or like commute on these Tuesdays and Thursdays, but my partner does because, you know, he has an adult job. Not that teaching isn't an adult job, but summers off is not something that you get in every industry. So he does commute down, and I was like, oh, I'll only go down occasionally, but honestly, I end up going down with him every week. I drive in the morning, he drives in the afternoon, so it's a nice little arrangement, and I like getting the time to kind of run around freely and explore. I think in the past, like, 3 weeks alone, I've just found so many cute spots. I've had such a blast. Today, let me see, I wrote down a list. I think we are probably going to start out at either Ancora or Lakeside Street Cafe. Both of those are some favorites. Probably Lakeside Street because the vibes are just immaculate, as the name suggests. It's right by the lake, overlooking the water. Super just cute energy, very adorable. I cannot forget to bring my headphones. I get so overstimulated in every public space now without them. I don't know what that says about me. You know, it's a problem for another day. So I'll work there for a little bit. I'm going to bring my little notebook where I have been recording sort of my thoughts and feelings, I guess. Not about things in general, but about the writing projects that I'm potentially going to tackle. Yeah, we're just gonna sit down for a bit and see what calls to me. I have my laptop, it's fully charged. I have my charger in case it runs out of battery. Most likely go to maybe the Sausier in Verona, which is that like knitting cafe. I really should not be going to yarn stores anymore because they are actually depleting my savings. Like, it's becoming a financial burden to be into crochet and knitting. Now that I'm thinking about it, it might be better to start out at Ancora because they have a little bit more of a robust food menu. We'll see. We'll see if I'm like super hungry when we get down there. There's like options basically, and I'm going to play it by ear. The basic gist is like a little bit of cafe time or a fair amount of cafe time, some breakfast, some coffee, some shopping, and it's going to be fun. Let's see where the day takes us. Also, as a side note, I was influenced by Becca in person because she saw that the tripod I was using was not up to snuff, so she like basically made me get this one. I say made, that's a very strong word. She highly encouraged me to get this one, and it is like my new favorite thing. I actually want to show you guys what I was using before for my portable tripod. The way they're like roughly this, not even that much of a size difference, but this, I could not get my camera on or off it. So thank you, Becca, for making me get a big girl tripod. I adore you. Mwah.
Everybody wants you to play in. Yeah, they're giving you the look, but you think you're getting took. You had a feeling you should have stayed in. But the crook has got his hooks, and you're cooking up your books, ain't you?
Hi, checking in for a little bit of an afternoon update. It's like almost 3, or it's a little bit, yeah, it's 3:21. In about an hour, I'm gonna have to go out and pick Alex up from work, and we're gonna head, well, to the thrift store and then home. Okay, I'm gonna start out with kind of the bad. I feel like I haven't been writing and actively creating as much as I really thought I would and hoped I would when I set out to do this little experimental vlog. I am evaluating and I am discovering. I feel like I've pulled up a lot of old projects and ideas and dusted them off, and I'm really starting to consider them again. There's like that sort of creativity happening, but I'm not really writing. This morning I submitted 2 short stories. One is an epistolary, like, fairy tale that I have been trying to find a home for forever. No one is really snapping it up. So for that one, I am considering just like uploading it to my blog, like my written blog, or even just doing that and also making a video kind of reading and analyzing it. I don't know if that's like too much though, or something that people would even be interested in, because it's like a fairly polished story. So it's not like really an edit with me video. It'd be more of a just like reading my short work out loud video, which I'm fine with. And I think it'd be pretty fun and simple to put together. But again, I don't know if that'd be interesting. I do think it's a fun piece. Anyway, submitted that to a magazine. I also submitted a piece, which I'm going to call Project Parasite, that I thought was like incomplete, but turns out I had finished it like ages ago and just never bothered doing that last polish and submitting it. So I did that last polish and submitted it to a magazine. It got a rejection in like not even 3 hours, I think. It was like that. So I submitted it to another place. I think that one is also fairly up to snuff. It hasn't seen betas, unlike the first piece, but it is like a weird story. So I think maybe the dark was not the best place to submit it. It's not quite pure horror. It leans more toward like horror comedy. Wow, this lighting is awful. So that was fun. Kind of just like, I don't know, again, that's not creative work though. It's just really editing and revising, and they didn't need that much editing to begin with. And then some other projects that I explored as I was like sitting at Sauzier and also Ancora were Project Green, which I think is what I'm going to dabble in for the rest of the afternoon. This is my sort of like folkloric Midwestern Gothic fairy tale set in modern day. Right now, I'm really struggling to find the voice for it. And I think until I find voice, it's very difficult for me to even slightly draft a novel-length project or any project really. And I have a very specific voice in mind, but I can't access it as easily as I'm able to access like the Gothic voice for Crypts. I really wanted to have that sort of storied fairy tale voice. I think I mentioned this before, but that's not one I'm really practiced writing in, and it doesn't come as naturally to me. And that doesn't mean it's not my voice. I think that like voice can fluctuate, and I think it's a fun exercise to try different voices, and I think different projects require different voices to make them stand apart. It's one of my favorite things about the craft of writing. Yeah, it's just gonna require like a lot more vocal training, a lot more like really considering each line and sentence and phrase that comes out of me. But it's interesting because the plot for that one is really coming through for me as I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I do think it's a really fun book, and I do feel pretty confident that it's probably going to be the next thing I work on after Crypts. So a couple years down the line, but it's never too late to start marinating actively and to start really thinking about voice and characters and plot and all that stuff. I really like to let those elements sit before I even consider like writing a book. I will say originally the book was set in the Siskiyou Mountains in like Northern California, so a very rural kind of mountainy region, a lot of history, but I am setting it in the Midwest now, probably in like northern Wisconsin or northern Great Lakes areas. What I have written it no longer applies. It doesn't apply anymore. So I need to tweak that a little bit. I think that like the more I've been here, the more I've really started to inhabit the skin of this place in a weird way. I've lived in a lot of places. I really like to fully immerse myself, which sounds weird when you live in Wisconsin. Like it sounds weird to say, but I truly believe that every place has its own unique character and culture, and the people are unique in their own ways. So I really like to learn about those things and especially like study them and make my own observations as I'm living in a place. One of my most defining features as a writer is atmosphere and sense of place. Like I really, really like to have a defined setting. You won't find white room syndrome with me because I'm obsessed with places. And I don't know if that's like a flex so much as it is like an examination of my own obsessions and neuroses, but it's something I very much enjoy. Right now, because I've been living here for a couple years, the Midwest rest is very much like occupying the front of my mind. What else? Oh, I also got an email from my editor from Bloomsbury, and she is considering MOTHSBLOOD D8, which is delivered and accepted, which is the stage right before copy edits. So that basically means the book is done. I was right in my assessment, and we are moving on to next steps as long as the UK also signs off. Very, very excited about that. That is fantastic news to be receiving, that I'm done pretty much with the editorial process for MOTHSBLOOD, and it'll find its way into readers' hands relatively soon. We're like a year and 3 months out from publication, which is both a very long time and not a very long time. Feels extremely surreal. Don't really know what to do about that, so I'm repressing it for now and just not dealing with it. I think that's about it for this interlude. I'm going to go ahead and find a spot in the shade to sit and write for a bit. Bye. Listen, I gotta show y'all something. This is my yarn project right now. I'm making a patchwork cardigan. I'm knitting for like the first time, and I decided to, start with a patchwork cardigan. It's a mess. It's a whole mess. All the yarn is getting tangled. I don't know how to like make it not tangle every time I turn. It's making me tired. I've already frogged this back panel. I also have found that I like can't keep my hands off of knitting lately, so I desperately need to like remove myself from this situation. And I'm gonna head out to a cafe. It's almost 11. Coffee at 11 a.m. Couldn't be me, except it is going to be me because I'm going to have a very big coffee. And then at 1:30, I'm actually meeting up with some friends for lunch, and we're going to a lavender farm. So I have, probably about like 2 hours to really sink into writing. Yesterday, I think combined, I wrote 2 hours with all the sections where I timed myself. And I found myself being drawn primarily to Project Green, but even more than that, something called Project Death, which I briefly described. It's interesting to me because I feel like the projects that I daydream about the most when I'm not thinking about crypts, which I will say it has been very, very hard to not just go right back into crypts. I'm very excited to go to Milwaukee tomorrow and like really dive into Project Crypts because it's going to be such a good feeling to go back into that world because it's so developed. Like I don't have to do as much of the heavy lifting as I have to do with more of these like half-baked ideas. I think creativity, it's not like flowing as much as I would like it to. Maybe it's because I've been locked into revision mode for so long at this point. Brain juices aren't flowing. I might need to read more or like watch a movie that isn't just like dead garbage fluff. I think I need to fill my well up a little bit, and maybe that's something I should have prioritized before I started this vlog, but I was focused on finishing my thesis, and then I was so excited to write that I just jumped into it. But we live and we learn. I filmed this twice because I had like a whole long rant about being Korean American in writing. And I'm not going to revisit that, but I'm just going to say that in my writing lately, I felt a little bit of like a detachment. As much as I love crypts, it's not nearly as personal as MOTHSBLOOD was. MOTHSBLOOD is one of the most intensely personal books I've ever written, maybe the most personal things I've written, period. And I think that's part of why, even though there's been ups and downs with it, it's stuck with me, and I'm very proud that it's going to be my debut. But Crypts, I'm still struggling a little bit to find that connection outside of just being fascinated by the characters in the world. I think the main character does embody a glimmer of my existential anger, let's call it. I've mentioned this before, because it's a secondary world, it's a little bit more difficult to root myself in it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Some books are obviously going to be more personal than others. If I just strove to constantly write a more and more personal book, eventually it would just be like ridiculous, semi-autobiographical garbage with magic in it. But I would really like, I think, to, and this is the case with Project Green, not so much with Project Death. I've been having like lots of introspection, I guess you could call it, about Korean American identity and how it's very distinct between like 1.5 first generation, second generation, and then people who live in mainland Korean, like mainland Korea Koreans. Exploring those distinctions has been something that has kind of just been wiggling in the back of my head, a little bit of a brainworm, and also like celebrating Korean American experiences and identity as its own unique thing that's really beautiful and really meaningful, and you don't have to try to be either fully American or fully Korean. You can be this sort of like separate thing. I guess the issue with Project Green is that it's not a very joyful book. It's quite heavy and it's pretty depressing, I'd say. It is a multi-generational book, so it does kind of tick that box. But I'm thinking a lot as well about Project Sunshine, which is a contemporary novel. It's like the only idea for a contemporary novel I've ever had. It's very personal because it's all about food and like the restaurant business. I've never really worked in the restaurant business. I've worked food service as a very grunt level, but my partner grew up working in restaurants and family restaurants. And I think that's so funny because from the beginning, my first book, I've always been fixated on this idea of a family restaurant. My first book, Ari's Guide, the main character grows up working in her family restaurant. And so now I'm back to this idea of like family restaurateuring, and it's so funny to me that I eventually like met someone who had actually had that experience and was like, yeah, this sucked. I think that's very charming. A little bit of personal lore. Project Sunshine is what I think I'm going to dive into today because it's very different, less world building. The character work is all done. Like all the characters are very developed and I love them so much. And I think this is the book that I need right now because even with Project Green and Project Death, I found myself thinking about the marketing. I was like, oh, how would this line up with the rest of my repertoire and like books that people can pick up and read? And Project Sunshine is so different to the point where I'm like, I would never sell this. That I think there's a lot of freedom there to just fully kind of unleash and to have fun. Again, it has everything to do with food. I love cooking, and I love Korean food. My dream for this book, if I ever did release it in some manner, would be to have like recipes in the back because I came up with a lot of dishes for it and I would love to test them out and actually make them and see if they work because there are all these like fun fusion dishes that I've never seen anyone else do, frankly. Maybe I should just become a restaurant owner. Just kidding. That would ruin my life. Yeah, I think today is going to be a Project Sunshine day. So I'm going to go to the cafe, my favorite cafe nearby, for about 2 hours, and then we'll hang out and we'll see where the rest of the day takes us. Leaving my knitting at home because my God, it's like a demon possesses me. I cannot, even holding my microphone, I'm like, well, I could knit while doing this. No, I need to calm down. It's fine. I am not Alyssa in the books. But yeah, let's head out, get some coffee in me, and work on Project Sunshine. Hi, okay, we are going to officially close out this vlog. It is 7:30 at night. I just spent like a good 30 minutes literally just doing exactly what I set out to do, which is have a good time working on just a random writing project, and it was Project Sunshine. I have to like stop. I have to pull myself away from this because I do think there's a fair amount of it that needs reworking, but really I was just having such a good time. It's very bantery. What happened was I said everything that I said this morning. I went to the cafe, I opened up the document for Project Sunshine Draft 1, 75 pages in there. 75 pages that I like don't really remember writing. I'm not 100% sure when I wrote this stuff. I know that it is before the bear, or before I watched the bear, because I remember watching the bear for the first time and then it made me not want to work on this project again because there were so many parallels. But I feel fine. I feel like they are distinct enough now that it's fine. And also, like, I'm not really interested in selling this necessarily. Like, I wouldn't be mad about it, but I don't think it really aligns with the rest of my discography as a writer, so I'm fine with it just being a project for me. It's funny, I was actually pitching this one to my partner though, and he really liked it, so you know, whatever that means. I spent most of my morning session going through and reviewing the like 75 pages, having a blast because the voice of this is very distinct. There's like such a distinct, zippy, snarky, contemporary voice. I do think it reads a little young. There's this, yeah, it's very reminiscent of Ari's Guide, which also had a contemporary setting. It was very easy to slip back into. I think it is probably a voice that comes very naturally for me because I just like wrote Ari's Guide in this voice for so long. But yeah, like I mentioned, it does read a little bit young at times. I think I was a little bit less mature when I wrote these 75 pages, but I was having a blast with it. Like I was just kind of going through different scenes, adding new scenes. I just added a scene where kind of like inadvertently the main character and like I guess you would call it her love interest, go on their first date, but it's like not really a date, but it it is a date. They just are refusing to acknowledge it. The premise of their relationship is that, you know, we have this like capitalist pig, extremely type A, borderline like sociopathic female main character who has been like on that grind her whole life. She like has an MBA and has just been trying to succeed in business for a really long time, and she goes into business, a food truck, her family food truck, with this guy who her parents hired because like they kind of know each other from childhood. They're from the same neighborhood. He's a really talented chef, dropped out of culinary school, and his main prerogative in life is literally just to feed people, not to turn a profit, but to make good food and to give it to people. And his love language is definitely food. So it's a lot of like their values and their viewpoints are in direct conflict as they're in business together, but they're also like falling in love a little bit. I don't know. It's fun. It's a good time. And there's a lot of other stuff going on in the background. I don't know why this is like such a developed concept and story, especially because I literally have not thought about this in so long. I feel like if I daydream about something that's not Project Crips, it's usually Project Green or like Project Tiger. But this one's a lot of fun. I don't know. I have no other ideas in me ever for another contemporary romancy type. This is like a weird one. I don't think it's not really a romance novel because it's just not. It doesn't have the same structure and it doesn't like hit the points that I think would be expected of a romance novel. And it's, I think, a lot more focused on things outside of the main romance. I guess at best you could call it like a contemporary novel. I don't know. That's really broad. That's really vague. But in short, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I hit my goal of having fun. And so yeah, we're going to end this vlog. As a little bit of a recap on this past couple days, it took me a while to get back into the groove of things, but I have been writing. I have been adding scenes. I came back to this even though I didn't have to, and I wasn't feeling that way yesterday about Project Death or Project Green, so that was really nice. I will say that I'm really just like eager and excited to dive back into Project Crips. I'm gonna bring a book along tomorrow for the Milwaukee vlog because I think I do need to read a little bit and refill that creative well before I commit to Project Crips fully. Even with everything going on in my life and with how stacked my days are and how busy I am, I do need to remind myself that like I have to read at least a little bit every day, and I really do try to read a little bit every day. It's very important for me and my like creative well-being and health to keep reading, to be continuously reading, to fill that well up as much as possible with stories and words and characters and different worlds. That's something that like more and more I have to actively remind myself to do, especially as my days get busier. But all in all, I thought this was a really fun time. I'm glad I got this little chance to explore and do something a little bit different, especially because this is so different from every other project on the docket. I'm actually really glad that I rediscovered it. And I do have a feeling that this is going to be like a project I return to from time to time as just like a mental well-being, kind of recalibrating and just doing something for fun rather than chasing that profit. So wow, it's almost like my life and my values are kind of directly paralleling the themes of this book, and maybe that's why I'm feeling drawn to it in this time of my life. No, that's probably not it. So I'm going to go off and enjoy the rest of my night. If you made it to the end of this video, feel free to drop a sun emoji for Project Sunshine. If you liked this video, you know what to do. If you are not already subscribed to this channel, you also know what to do there. Let me know in the comments below what you're working on now. I always like to hear from you guys, especially if you have a project that you know isn't going to be like the most commercial, you know is just like a weird project that you work on in your free time to feel creative and to fulfill that urge. Yeah, tell me about it in the comments. I want to hear about it. Other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.